Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going over basic concepts about business. So here is our content. So first of all, we're going to look at the economic problem, the economic choice, opportunity cost, and PPC, or the production possibility curve. We're going to look at bartering. Secondly, we're going to look at bartering, what it is, and the issues with it. Thirdly, we're going to look at the medium of exchange and legal tender. Okay. Fourthly, we're going to look at the economic systems. Okay, the types, the characteristics, advantages, and disadvantages. And we're going to look at demand. Okay, so law of demand, curve and schedule. What there are changes in demand and supply as well. Law of supply, curve and schedule, changes in supply and market equilibrium. So what it is, what are shortages, what are surpluses, what is subsidy and indirect tax and their impacts on the curve. So first we're going to look at problem, economic choice, and opportunity cost. So the economic problem is the rational management of scarce and limited resources to best satisfy limited wants and needs. So as we all know, there are a finite amount of resources or a limited amount of resources on earth, while what we want and what we desire, what we need, is unlimited. Okay, so you can always you want, like, your wants and your needs are unlimited. You If you want, you have something, you can always ask for more. So your desires are unlimited while the resources is limited. So it's all about the rational management. Okay, so the efficient management is best satisfy limited wants and needs. Economic choice is basically the rational management, or the rational choice is a decision of a consumer or a producer. Okay, or if you make a best economic choice, it means that you made the best, you made the rational management. Okay, you've made the best choice on how to satisfy your what you want with limited amount of stuff you have. For example, make yourself happy with the amount of money you have. Okay, so the opportunity cost is the next best option, or in some cases, the best option. Okay, so after a consumer or a producer have made their economic choice, have made the decision, opportunity cost is what they're going to miss out. Or, like, sometimes, okay, if their economic choice is the best, they're going to miss out the next best option. But if their economic choice is not the best, then in some cases they're going to miss out the best option. Okay, so for example, I'm talking figuratively, not saying which one is better. So you can play two sports, for example, from the time slot 6 to 8 p.m. You can either play football, or you can play, let's say, hockey, for example. So if you choose football is your economic choice, and hockey is your opportunity cost. Okay, or you can switch them around. If you choose hockey, the hockey is going to be your economic choice, and football is going to be your opportunity cost. Okay, so in this example, I'm not saying football is better than hockey. What I'm saying is, the thing you choose is your choice, your economic choice, and the thing you missed out. Okay, so from a list of options, the thing you miss out is you're going to be your opportunity cost. Okay, so the production possibility curve, it shows the maximum achievable combination of both products with the current resources. Okay, so in this curve right here, sources from Investopedia. In this curve right here, you can see this is the production possibility curve, or you can also call it the production possibility frontier. So product A is wine and product B is cotton. Okay, we can see A, B, and C is efficient use or maximum utilization of resources. So for example, at this point right here, there's, let's say, for example, you have 0 here, 3,000, 6,000, and around 8,000 here. Okay, for example, like that. 8,000 wine. So at 8,000 wine right here, you're able to produce, let's say, 5,000 cotton. This is the efficient use or maximum utilization of resources. Or at, let's say, 6,000 wine products, you're able to produce, let's say, 8,000 cotton. Okay, or at, 10,000 cotton, you're only able to produce 3,000 wine, but still, because you're using your current resources, so if one product increase, the other product will decrease. Okay, so if you max utilize all of your resources, and of course, if wine increase in this example, if wine increase, then the number of cotton produced will be decreased. So x point X is an inefficient use of resources. Okay, so as you can see, you can only make, around like, let's say 3,000, or let's say not 5,000 cotton for 3,000 wine. Okay, but while in this example, you can make, like, 8,000 cotton with three I mean 8,000 wine with 3,000 cotton. Oh, with 5,000 cotton. Okay, so so let's make things clear. This is right here is 5,000, and this right here is 3,000, 6,000, and 9,000. So, at point X, you'll make 5,000 cotton and 3,000 wide, but at the same time, you can make 5,000 cotton with, 8,000 wide right here. So this is the efficient use right here, the maximum utilization, and this here, okay, so inside the curve is inefficient use, and point Y is impossible. Okay, you can't achieve that with your current resources because you can't produce that much, because outside of the frontier or the curve is impossible. Okay, so moving on to the next content. Okay, next option, we're going to look at bartering and what are the issues. So bartering is simply defined as directly exchange goods for other goods. So you can see in this example on the right here, a man with, like a loaf of meat or like a leg is exchanging his meat for a fish from another man. Okay, so you're assuming this guy's a butcher and this guy's a sailor or a fisherman. So they're exchanging the goods, okay? And that is bartering. So no medium of exchange or nothing in between. So I'm going to cover that in the next slide. Okay, so this directly exchange goods for goods. So what are the issues with it? Okay, so transportable. So this is the first issue. Like, if good can be transported to places or not. So that's the question. So, you might trade, for example, lands. Okay, you might trade like 50 cows for a piece of land, but you can't transport that land, and you don't want to live on that land, that piece of land right now. And if if you leave it there for a long time, because bartering is associated with, traditional economy, which I'm going to be covering later in the video. But essentially it is, when you barter. Okay, so if you're bartering, then that place is pretty rural. Okay, so not advanced, and people can just invade your lands and live on there, so you don't want security. Okay, so if you buy that piece of land, you want to live on there, to watch out for it, to look out, to say, stop people from, taking them or using them, as for example. But you can't, okay, because you live too far away, or you just don't want to move, because your crops might be in your old piece of land, and this new piece of land you might, want to do something else with it, whatever you want. But it's, you can't transport it back to your current place. Okay, so the next problem is perishable. So goods don't work anymore or are dead. So, let's say you trade two cows for a horse. Okay, so a horse, like for a racing horse, for example, you want to race around, you want to show off to your friends, but the problem is, what if it just die? Like, it's dead. So you wasted two cows for a dead horse. So you can't guarantee that, the products will surely work if you trade them. For example, okay, so another example is, you might have a tractor or machinery or something, and you just trade them for your stuff, and they suddenly break down, so you won't be able to use them anymore. So this is a perishable. Okay, so perishable, I mean, it also works with the modern day technology, modern day stuff, like even with money or as medium of exchange. Perishable is still a problem, but it is more strongly. Okay, it occurs more, and it's more strongly in bartering. Okay, so next one is double coincidence of wants. So, like, you can see on this picture, it's here. Okay, so this guy might want this dude's fish. So dude A might want dude B fish, but dude B doesn't want dude's A meat. So dude B won't. Guy B won't try to trade with guy A. Well, that's a problem for guy A because he needs what the guy B has. So they won't trade. So one of the parties doesn't want, okay, or two parties does not want the other side. So they won't trade. So you won't get what you need. You won't get what you want. Okay, so next one is exchange values. Okay, so of course there's no medium exchange. You trade them goods directly, so there's no medium exchange, and it's really tiring to remember the ratio. And you can just argue over and over again. So for example, let's say you trade two cows for a horse for, let's say, 5 pigs, 5 pigs for like 10 barn of hay. So there are a bunch of ratios you need to remember to trade with. And let's say you might not remember the ratio correctly, and the other person might remember it like differently. So you guys get into argue, so get into an argument, and no sides get what they want because they say, "Oh, he's ripping me off." They'll say, "No, you're ripping me off." So both sides are not getting into a good trade, so they're not going to trade, and that's a problem too because they're not getting what they want. So this is a huge problem. Indivisible, so goods cannot be divided. So a strong example is like a cow. Okay, so if you trade a cow for 10 pigs, for example, but you only want 5 pigs, you just can't cut a cow in half. Okay, so if you want a cow alive, okay, a living cow, so it's still working, but you only have 5 pigs to trade. You can't trade for a cow. You can't want a cow. Okay, so you will not have a cow because you just can't cut a cow in half and expect it to live. Yes, so that's not how it works. So those are the issues of bartering. And we're going to look at the medium exchange and legal tender. So medium exchange is something that both sides accept in exchange for goods and services. So coming back here in this picture, you might not trade meat for a fish directly, but you might say, "Oh, my meat is worth $10, and your fish is worth $10. So let me give you $10 instead, and you can give me the fish." And this guy right here can use $10 to buy other stuff too. So the medium of exchange is something both sides accept, okay, for in exchange for goods and services. And the legal tender is a government supported medium of exchange, okay, like coins and notes, like US dollars, Indian rupee, whatever, I'm sorry, Thailand baht, New Zealand dollars, something like that. Okay, so they're the government supported one, a legal one. Okay, so we're moving on to the economic systems. And firstly, we're going to look at command economy. So these are the characteristics of a command economy. So it's controlled by a government. So government allocate all resources. So they distribute all resources by themselves. So there are no private businesses, no competition, and it's usually associated with communist countries like Cuba and China. Okay, and we're going to move on. Okay, the advantages and disadvantages. So advantages, because communist countries, okay, so they're associated with communist countries, which means, so in case anyone doesn't know, communism is basically everyone gets the same power. Okay, so everyone is equal, they have this equal power. So you have social programs like free education for people, free healthcare for people, free public transport. Okay, so this is important. Industrial power boosted because the government is going to focus on producing the goods that people need, so the industrial power is going to get boosted. A lower unemployment rate, again, it's related to communism because everyone is equal. The government is going to hire like almost everyone to work for them, to produce the goods that people need. So the unemployment rate is going to be low. And no monopolizing. So monopolizing is basically large businesses, taking over small businesses, and the large businesses don't give the small businesses a chance to grow or develop. Okay, so they just take over. So it's kind of unfair for the small businesses, and since there's not going to be a private businesses, there's not going to be monopolizing because all of the businesses is controlled by the government. So essentially one owner. Okay, so on the other hand, disadvantages is going to be inefficient. Okay, so because the government allocate resources by what they're guessing, okay, by what they're seeing, they might research stuff, but they don't rely on the demand, law of demand, and law of supply. So there's of course going to be shortages and surpluses, which is going to be very inefficient. Okay, so disadvantages to low economic growth, because since there are no private businesses, there are no competition, the economy is not going to get stimulated. So the economic growth is not going to be large, and it lacks innovation. Yes, of course. So the government is just going to stick okay, to the original ones. So they stick to what they're already producing, and they're not going to use anything else. So compared with capitalist countries like America, they're constantly getting new stuff, like getting new innovations, new technologies, new medicines. But while the communist countries just stick to the old one. Okay, so there might be some new technologies that will help the country, but since the government doesn't know that, or they do but they're not going to, they're not enough manpower, like mine, or I can say mine, because more people, if like people make stuff and they think about them, like compared to like a bunch of people thinking it, only the government is trying to think of new stuff. So obviously, like the more heads, the better. So two heads is better than one. That goes saying like that. Okay, so free market economy. So this one is totally opposite of the command economy, and is yes, associated with capitalist countries like Hong Kong and Singapore. So the government doesn't interfere at all. Like you do whatever you want. There are of course private businesses. There are of course competition because the competitions goes along with private businesses, and they rely on the law of supply and demand to allocate all their resources. Okay, so the advantages and disadvantages, of course, we're just going to flip the table, as you can see back here, flip this thing over to advantages and flip this thing over to disadvantages for free market economy. So you're going to get efficient. Yes, of course, because you rely on the law of supply and demand. There are going to be lots of innovations because there are going to be a lot of private businesses. There's going to be a large economic growth because there are competitions which stimulate the economy. It's easy to start a business, of course, because the government doesn't interfere, so you're allowed to do whatever you want with your business. Not really, but because this is a free market economy, okay, so it's like a traditional free market economy, like an original one. With the more advanced one, the government does interfere a bit to prevent unfairness and stuff, but for the traditional one or the original free market economy, it's easy to start a business because nothing will interfere. And of course, more choices for customers, because since there are more businesses, okay, more private businesses, the customers get to choose more instead of just having to buy from the government, which don't open a lot of stores, like a lot of variety. Okay, so disadvantages: high unemployment rate. This is important because people don't have to, okay, they don't have to employ them, so they're going to be a high employment rate. So the profit over quality, okay, so this is their mindsets for businesses in free market economy or in capitalist countries. So profit over quality, they focus more on the profit rather than the quality of the goods. So people might put stuff like bad stuffs in like their goods to increase their profit without caring for the quality. Okay, so this can harm the consumers themselves. Okay, monopoly, yes, of course, there are private businesses, there are large ones like Apple, Samsung. They take over the small tech companies that that trying to start up tech companies, like small ones, going to take over because no one's going to know about these small tech companies. So essentially monopolizing. Absence of public goods, because people care for themselves only. They only care about profit. There's not going to be like free education or free healthcare or something like that. Black market is a problem too because the government doesn't interfere. So there's going to be a lot of black markets where you sell legal stuff. And pollution, again, the government doesn't interfere, so you can produce like a bunch of harmful stuff, like not like a byproduct. Okay, so you don't try to produce these, but like the manufacturing one and the production of, let's say, gold or carbon, you burn coal a lot for heat, so there's going to be a lot of pollution. Okay, mixed economy is just a hybrid system. Okay, you just combine command economy and free market economy together. So essentially, yeah, they have characteristics from both sides. So in command economy, the government does everything. In free market economy, the government does nothing. So in mixed economy, the government does something. Okay, so a mixture between command and free market economy have some government intervention. Okay, so they're going to set laws and rules for fairness. Going to be the law of supply and demand. Okay, so the resources is going to get allocated by law of supply and demand plus government rules. Okay, so you just don't. Okay, so for example, tobacco. Okay, tobacco is essentially harmful for people, or marijuana. So of course, people might want a lot of marijuana, and the law of supply and demand is going to distribute marijuana to people efficiently. But the government doesn't want this because it's harmful for the people, and yeah, the economy is not going to be good. Okay, socially, the country's not going to be good. So they're going to intervene in and say, okay, we're going to put indirect tax on you. Okay, have indirect taxes on like production of some goods to reduce the production of that particular good. For example, let's say cigarettes and tobacco, as I said earlier. Okay, so private businesses allowed. They have competitions, of course, subsidies and indirect taxes. Okay, as I said earlier, indirect taxes from government, and subsidy is just a way of government saying, "Hey, we want more of this to be produced to boost." But subsidies is like the opposite of indirect taxes. So indirect taxes are like the increased taxes on the production of like a product to reduce the supply, okay, reduce the production of that particular one because they don't want to be like a lot of that products in the market. But subsidies, on the other hand, is government. They intervene in, they pay part of the production cost for the producers. So essentially, increasing the supply, okay, increasing the production of that particular good or product. So there are more of them in the market. Okay, the advantages is of course efficient, lower unemployment rate. I'm not saying completely low, but lower unemployment rate than free market economy. So it's better. So large economic growth. Yes, of course, because there are private businesses, there are competitions. It is fair, and it's also more choices for customers. Okay, disadvantages. Oh, okay. So this one too. They also have. So for the advantages one, they also have social programs. Okay, they have free education and essentially free healthcare as an advantage. Disadvantages is going to be corruption. So corruption is going to be higher in in mixed economy. The taxes, of course, are going to be higher since there are indirect taxes. And yes, monopoly is still a problem, even though there's going to be less. Monopoly is still going to be a problem because yes, they're going to be less because the government is going to capsize. Okay, they're going to cap the business. Okay, so you can't grow higher than this, or you can't keep expanding because you need to make room for small businesses or small startups to do their stuff too. So essentially, you can say mixed economy is an improved or upgraded version of a free market economy. Okay, so a traditional economy. So it's related to bartering, agriculture, fishing, hunting, and gathering. Okay, so it's tribal stuff, ancient stuff. So you produce your own stuff. So okay, so not like a particular firm that focuses on producing goods and products for people and distribute them. No, you produce your own stuff. You can grow your own rice, or you can go hunt for meat, or you can go fishing. Okay, so you produce what you need, and if something that you don't have, you will barter with people. And as I said earlier, bartering is kind of less advanced. Okay, it's kind of uh not good. Okay, not as good as using the medium of exchange or using money as a medium of exchange. And original economy is like, people like economists have hypothesized that most economic systems start off as a traditional economy. So essentially, it will then develop into one of the other three economic systems. Okay, so the advantages: less pollution. Of course, there's not going to be factories. They're not going to be revolutionized production of heavy equipment like machineries and stuff. So obviously, less pollution. So the activities they do are more environmental friendly, like agriculture, fishing, hunting, and gathering. It is also efficient because you produce what you need and you just barter for what you don't need, barter for something else that you need but you did not produce or you're not able to produce. So it is efficient. So disadvantages is discourage innovation because if you create something new, people might not want it, so they're not going to barter with you. So essentially, you're not going to have food or stuff to stay, so you're not going to have your basic needs. Lower living standards too, because yes, of course, it's associated with tribal stuff, so it's less advanced because these activities you're not going to have a lot of goods either, so it's lower living standards. So we're going to move on to the next one, which is the demand. Okay, so we have demand, which is a consumer or consumers willing to buy a certain product at a product at that quantity, okay, at an amount of quantity at a certain price level. Okay, so for example, if you can see on this demand curve right here, at zero quantity, at the price of $10, they're not going to be people buying it. So zero quantity, but it's the price decrease. Okay, law of demand right here says as the price of a product goes up, its demand goes down, etc. is parabolic. Well, I'm going to cover this a little bit later, but or in reverse, as the price goes down, demand goes up. Okay, so you can see on this curve right here, is the price from $10 to $8. So they decrease the quantity demanded will increase. So from 0 to 2, and as it decreased down further to $6 per product, the demands for it increased to 4. So, okay, this is a law of demand at ceteris paribus. Okay, so this is important. Ceteris paribus is only the price of the good changes. Okay, so no other things that change. So, demands of people might change not due to the price, but some other stuff. So that's completely different, which I'm going to cover in the next slide. But et ceteris paribus is just simply okay. So people, as the price goes down, the quantity demanded is going up. Okay, so not et ceteris paribus, or there are other things affecting the demand curve or affecting people's demands. So first of all, price changes in complementary goods. Okay, so complementary goods are goods that go along with the product you're using. For example, let's say you have Nike shoes, and let's say you have Nike shirts. Okay, so people have Nike shoes probably tend to wear Nike shirts as well. So as because they go along with each other pretty well because they're designed by the same brand, they have good color contrast. So, if people buy Nike shoes, they probably would buy Nike shirt as well. So as the demand for Nike shoes increase, the demands for Nike shirts will probably increase as well, or vice versa. Same to price changes of the good itself. Okay, so this is due to changes in supply, which I'm going to cover in the market equilibrium one. Changes in taste and preferences. Okay, so people back then, my case of a real life example is for iPods. Okay, so back when Apple first released iPods, people were going crazy over it. But now you would rarely see a person having an iPod because it's outdated in quotation marks. Okay, so people don't like anymore. It's not fashionable anymore. So it's going to change the demand curve. So price changes of substitute goods. Oh, I'm sorry. For the demand curve is this red line right here. Okay, so price changes of substitute goods. So substitute goods are goods that can replace that particular product or supplies. For example, a substitute good for petrol can be diesel. Okay, not essentially exactly, but can be diesel. So cars might drive on petrol, but the price of petrol may get too high, for example. So people are going to start switching to diesel. Okay, so essentially, if price of petrol is going to increase, so its demands will go down. So the petrol demands will go down, and ultimately leading to demands of diesel going up because people are looking for replacement, a cheaper replacement. So price changes of substitute goods. Also, the number of consumers can also change the demand curve. Let's say there are 500 people demanding stuff at a particular area, but in another area there might be 600 people. So essentially, the number of consumers get larger. The demands can get better for something. So changes in income and wealth. So we're going to talk about normal versus inferior goods. So normal and inferior goods is basically what you demand, what you use, and what you used to use. Okay, so normal goods. So people making a lot of money tend to see restaurant meals as normal, while eating at home cooking is inferior because they're not the the particular thing, the particular meal is not suited for their income level. So, for example, people making a lot of money, as I said earlier, see restaurant meals as normal and home cooking as inferior. But for billionaires, billionaires like Bill Gates, restaurant meals might be inferior to, like, let's say, hiring a private chef to cook for him. So, climate and natural events. So, climate and natural events can also affect demand. Let's say demands for ice cream will go down, of course, in winter because ice cream you'll only want to enjoy them in hot weather to cool yourself down. Okay, so demands of ice cream will go down at at places with winter, for example. So supply. So producer. Okay, so this is supply curve. As I said earlier, producer willing to supply a certain quantity of a product at a certain price level. So law of supply again is pretty similar to law of demand, but it's in reverse. Okay, so as the price of the product goes up, its supplies will go up as well. Why? Because they'll essentially make more money if they sell them. So for example, you would make more money selling a $4 can of Coke than a $2 can of Coke. If for essentially et ceteris paribus, again, as I said earlier, only the price would change. Okay, only the price of the product will change. This is supply curve, law of demand, law of supply here. At zero price, there are going to be zero demands, but at $2 per product, this is going to be two supplied. Okay, so two products supplied. It's $4, four products supplied. $6, six products supplied. So essentially, they go up. So changes in supply, pretty similar to changes in demand with a few differences. Okay, as I said earlier, complementary goods. This is in reverse. Okay, so as a price for complementary goods increase, yes, its demands is going to decrease, and the demands for your products is going to decrease as well. So I've covered this. Okay, changes in demands. Of course, if people doesn't want it anymore, then the people are not producers are not going to produce them anymore because essentially no one is going to buy it. Price changes of substitute goods, I've covered it. Number of consumers, yes. Climate and natural events, yes. Changes in cost of production. So let's say you produced a can of Coke for $2 and sell it at the market for $4, and you're going to produce less. Okay, or let's say you produce compared to you producing a can of Coke for $1, and selling at the market for $4. So essentially, you're going to make more profit if your production cost is less. So you're going to produce more if your production cost is less. Okay, changes in level of technology. You might be able to only produce, like 100 of product A over, like for example, a week. But if you have more advanced technologies, you might be able to supply 200 of product A over a week. So the technology level is also important. Taxation. So the taxation, okay. So and taxation will decrease supply, and subsidies will increase supply. As I said earlier, taxation is the government. It's trying to limit. Okay, it's only in mixed economy, so the government tries to limit uh, the production of certain goods because it might be harmful, or the government doesn't want a lot of them to be on the market. So they will introduce tax, okay, or the tax will be heavier for that particular product. So people will produce less. And subsidies, subsidies, people, the government can pay partly, pay part of the cost of production, or they can, give you $1 for every product you produce, or something like that. Okay, to encourage you to produce more of that goods, so because they want more of that to be in the market. Okay, so we're going to talk about market equilibrium as our last content for today's video. So quantity, so it's where quantity demanded equals to quantity supplied. Here is an example. Okay, so shortages is quantity supplied less than quantity demanded. Okay, so market price will go up because people will compete for limited uh, supply of the product, or limited quantity of the product. For example, the price of, let's say gold is more expensive, or the value of gold will be more if, let's say there are 500 kilogram of gold in the market compared to 1,000 kilogram of gold in the market, because it's more limited. Okay, so it's limited, it's rarer, so people would try to get that stuff rare, so they will bid the price up, so the market price will go up. For surpluses, where quantity supplied is higher than quantity demanded, the market price for that product will go down because producers or suppliers will try to get rid of that product, okay, excess product, because not people are not going to want to buy it. So, they might lower the price down to encourage buyers to buy them. Okay, here is a curve, okay, our market equilibrium. So you have a supply curve and a demand curve. Okay, so where the meet is the a market equilibrium. For example, here, the green curve meets the red curve at point blue. So point blue is essentially the market equilibrium. So at a certain price, people will have demand this. Okay, so changes in demands and changes in supplies is, if either of these happen, changes in demands or supplies, there's going to be a change in the market equilibrium. So for example, a new supply. Okay, so supply have essentially increased. So you can see here, if you draw a line across here and draw it down, at this same price level, there's going to be more quantity demanded. Okay, well, there's going to be more quantity supplied. Sorry, so this is a new supply curve. So this supply curve, the government might subsidize the production of a certain good, and increase the new supply. So shifting the supply curve to the right. Okay, so I forgot to talk about this, but essentially, let's go back here. If we go all the way to demand, so the decrease in demand will shift the demand curve to the left, and an increase will shift it to the right. As you can see here, at this price level, for example, $60 per can, at the new, okay, so the old demand curve, there will going to be 500 quantity demanded, but if you shift it to the left, essentially there's going to be only 400 quantity demanded. So a decrease in demand will shift the curve to the left, and an increase in demand will shift it to the right. Okay, so for supply, Of course, there's no arrows, but you can see here S1 and S2. So a decrease in supply was shifted to the left, as you can see on this graph here, and an increase was shifted to the right. So go back to our market equilibrium. You would shift the supply curve to the right and essentially lowering, okay, changing the market equilibrium. So now it's at this purple point right here. So the new market equilibrium is at this purple point, not this blue point anymore. So of course the price and the quantity of the market equilibrium will change. Okay, this is when demand increase, so essentially shifting the demand curve to the right will also change the market equilibrium. Similarly, there are four situations. Okay, will change the market equilibrium. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching today's video, and I'll see you on the next one.